It's a quiet kind of death, a slow, rhythmic, everyday suicide that I invited into my life every single morning at 7:15 a.m. I'd walk into that small, tiled room, lock the door, and feel the cold air hit my skin. It was my fortress, my only 15 minutes of absolute uninterrupted silence in a world that never stopped screaming. I would sit there on that hard, unforgiving porcelain ring, and I would pull out my phone. It's so innocent, isn't it? Just scrolling, checking the headlines, watching a few videos, laughing at a meme while the world outside my door waited for me to start my day. I didn't realize that every minute I spent hunched over, staring at that glowing screen, I was committing a crime against my own biology. I didn't know that my weight, pressed down on that narrow seat, was acting like a blunt, heavy instrument. A tourniquet that was slowly, methodically strangling the life out of my lower body. I'd stay there for 10 minutes, then 15, sometimes 20 if the articles were interesting enough. And when I'd finally stand up, my legs would feel heavy, like they were filled with wet sand. There was that familiar creeping numbness, that static-like tingling that we all joke about. I'd shake my legs, wait for the blood to rush back, and go about my day. I thought I was just getting older. I thought pins and needles were just a part of the tax you pay for living 6 decades on this earth. I had no idea that I was systematically suffocating the most vital, delicate nerves in my entire body. I was starving my manhood of the very oxygen it needed to survive. The first real sign of the collapse wasn't sudden. It was a fading, a slow, agonizing retreat of my own vitality. The morning salute, that simple biological proof of life that had been with me since I was a teenager, it started to become unreliable. At first I blamed stress, I blamed the coffee, I blamed the late nights, but then it vanished completely. It was just gone. The silence in the morning was deafening. I started to feel like a hollowed-out version of myself. The psychological pain. It's a weight that sits on your chest every time you look in the mirror. But the worst of it was the bedroom. I would lie there, next to my wife, the woman I've loved for 30 years, and I felt like a stranger in my own skin. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to feel that connection, but my lower body was a dead zone. Cold, disconnected, unresponsive. It's a terrifying, visceral kind of horror to realize that you are broken. I would stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m., paralyzed by the thought that I had caused permanent, irreversible nerve damage to myself just by sitting on a toilet. I felt like I had destroyed my own masculinity through sheer, stupid habit. I felt like a ghost. I felt like the man I used to be had already died, and I was just the shell that was left behind. In that moment of absolute despair, when you realize you are losing the very essence of who you are, you search for a lifeline. You look for a way out of the darkness before the door closes forever. If you are terrified that you have permanently damaged your plumbing and want to understand the exact mechanics of saving your own body, I highly recommend checking out the Vascular Pressure Blueprint, how mature men are flushing out arterial plaque to restore full, rigid blood flow naturally, which I've linked first in the description. I remember the day I sat across from Dr. Richard Coleman. I was drained. I felt like I was confessing a sin. I told him about the bathroom, the numbness, the morning salute that never came back. I expected him to tell me it was just my age, to give me a pill and send me home. But he didn't. He looked at me with a grim, clinical intensity and introduced me to a term that changed my life: pelvic ischemia. He didn't use soft words. He exposed the raw, terrifying physiological truth. He told me that a toilet seat is one of the most dangerous pieces of furniture a man over 50 can own. When you sit there, hunched over your phone, that hard seat acts as a brutal, unrelenting tourniquet directly on the pudendal artery, the master highway for blood flow to the pelvic floor. He explained that when a young man stands up, his vessels are elastic, like fresh rubber hoses. The blood rushes back and the damage is undone. But for a man like me, for a man over 50, our arteries aren't elastic anymore. They are stiff. They are choked with decades of calcified plaque, a kind of biological concrete that lines the walls of our pipes. When I sat on that seat, I wasn't just falling asleep. I was cutting off the oxygen supply to nerves that were already gasping for air. I was suffocating them. And because my pipes were rusty and narrowed, when I stood up, the blood couldn't force its way back through. The pressure wasn't high enough to break the seal. The nerves weren't just resting. They were literally beginning to starve and die. Dr. Coleman told me that I couldn't just hope for it to get better. You can't heal a garden if the hose is kinked and full of sediment. He told me I had to physically clear the biological rust that was blocking my internal machinery. He didn't suggest more pills that only masked the symptoms. He gave me a biological rescue plan. He introduced me to something he called a precise vasodilator stack. This wasn't about temporary fixes. This was about science. It was designed to trigger a massive internal explosion of nitric oxide, the miracle molecule that tells your blood vessels to open up. He explained that this stack acts like an internal pipe cleaner. It's designed to physically dissolve the arterial rust, the calcified sludge that keeps our vessels narrow and brittle. The goal was to force the stiff, choked blood vessels to finally relax, to widen, and to accept a violent, highly pressurized tsunami of fresh, oxygen-rich blood directly into the starved, dying tissues of the pelvic floor. It was about reclaiming the vascular pressure that age and bad habits had stolen from me. I started the protocol with a mixture of skepticism and a desperate, clawing hope. The first few days, nothing seemed to change. But then, about a week in, I felt it. It started as a subtle, radiant heat in my core, a warmth that I hadn't felt in years. It was like a pilot light had been relit somewhere deep inside of me. The numbness began to retreat. The dead feeling in my legs when I stood up started to vanish. I felt a sensitivity returning, a tingle that wasn't about lack of blood, but about the presence of it. And then the morning came. It was 5:30 a.m. I woke up before my alarm, and for a second, I didn't move. I just lay there, feeling the weight of the blankets, and then I felt it, the unmistakable, highly pressurized and violent force of the morning salute. It was back. It wasn't weak. It wasn't hesitant. It was exactly like it had been 30 years ago. I wanted to weep. I wanted to scream with joy, the sheer, overwhelming dignity of feeling that power return. It's a profound peace that stays with you all day. My internal plumbing was finally clear. The rust was gone. The nerves were screaming back to life, fed by a torrent of blood that finally had the pressure it needed to reach its destination. I look back at those mornings on the toilet now and I shudder. I see so many men doing the exact same thing. We think we're just taking a break. We think we're just getting some peace and quiet. We don't realize we are killing our own manhood one scroll at a time. We are suffocating our vitality in the one place we feel safe. But you don't have to accept the decline. You don't have to live as a ghost. You have to understand that your body is a machine, and if the pipes are rusted, no amount of wishing will fix it. You have to use real, targeted science to fix the internal plumbing before the damage becomes permanent. You have the right to fix the root cause and demand the vitality you deserve before it is too late. For those ready to skip the trial and error and save their internal machinery, grab the vascular pressure blueprint. How mature men are flushing out arterial plaque to restore full, rigid blood flow naturally, available right now in the first link of the description. Don't wait until the numbness becomes permanent. Don't wait until the silence in your bedroom becomes the only thing you hear. I spent too many years thinking I was just getting old, when the truth was, I was just getting clogged. I refused to let my vitality die in silence. I chose to fight back. I chose to scrub the rust from the engine and take back ultimate vascular control. I'm a man again, not because of luck, but because I fixed the pressure. You can do the same. Stand up, get off the phone, clear the pipes, and wake up tomorrow morning with the salute you've been missing. Take back your life. Now.